Agentic Workflow Workshop. I'm Devin McGuire, Product Marketing Manager at Psycode, and I'm joined by Amit Katz, Psycode Product Manager. So software development is now agentic. Cyber attacks are also becoming agentic, but most security programs are still human-driven, human-constrained. So that's the gap that we are not just discussing, but really showing you how to close in this workshop. We'll dive into the product and walk through some practical examples of using agentic workflows. But first, Amit, can you kind of set the stage and talk us through why security needs to become agentic and why we need capabilities like Psycode's agentic workflows?
Yeah, of course. So I think I'll break it down into two. It first needs to be agentic because we want humans to be in the loop for things to be more scalable in general. We want that third party that can recommend a fix or assess risk or do whatever it's needed to make our security better. And then we want to do it at scale. So other than having that third party that helps us understand and triage better, we also want to do that within scale with workflows and not just on demand.
Yeah, so it's using agents to do things, doing it at scale. I feel like it's the kind of like perfect storm of challenges for security programs right now. Like they were already struggling to keep up with DevOps and Agile. Agentic has just made that all the more faster. You have citizen developers, so more people writing code. You also have, attackers and threats are also becoming more intensified. So yeah, it really is this kind of scale of a problem that humans can't keep up with. So we recently launched agentic workflows. What are they? How do they work?
Yeah. So basically, to understand agentic workflows, we first have to understand agents. Within Psycode, we have Maestro, which is our AI orchestrator. It's basically our agent, but it also orchestrates a lot of other tools that can help us triage and be better with security and make it easier for us. So within that master agent, we have two agents that have been available up until now. The first one is exploitability. It assesses risk and it detects whether a violation is actually reachable and exploitable in your environment. And the second one is remediation. It can recommend or even trigger the right fix for supported violations. So now that we understand that we have our AI for Psycode and we have our two agents and we have other tools that Maestro provides, we want to bring that into a bigger scale. And we want to automate certain scenarios and instances where we need to act fast. And we want the human to just be in the loop or just be the one configuring. But the next steps kind of go by themselves. So this can happen if someone is unavailable, but this can also even happen if we don't have all the resources, which I think most security teams currently do not, to tackle all of these new violations that come every day. So basically, with these new agents, we've added two new things. The first one would be outcome. So we have answers that you'll see in a second. And the second one is confidence score. So when the agent is called on, it can come back with a confidence score of how confident it is within its answer, depending on what it's been asked. And in that point, you can decide based on the outcome what you want to do, have it totally be automated. And you can also choose when to involve humans and add human approval. So it'll show you what the next step would be based on the agent, and then you can go ahead and approve it or decide to disregard it.
Cool. Yeah, so it's a great kind of synopsis. So we've had these agents for a while. We have like confidence scores and decisions and outcomes, and now it's kind of stringing together those decision flows while having kind of human control over when is an agent deemed to have made a decision, like what's that confidence threshold, and then when do we require humans to be in the loop and approve things, or when can those things run autonomously? But I think the kind of seeing is believing. So how can practitioners actually use this, put it in practice? Can you kind of show us in the product?
So I'll start off from the place that it all came from. We have the Maestro AI agent. You can always hop over to it and also ask it question about the agents that you're using within automation if you're not sure about the answer branches or anything that's being done. So, and from that Maestro agent, you can go ahead and see in specific violations what we've had this far is the exploitability and remediation tabs. Those already existed. These allow you to trigger these checks manually on the violation itself. So I can go ahead and do it on exploitability and remediation. I have one that we already have good to go. It should take only a few minutes, but once it's done loading, you will see, for example, in the remediation agent, the code fix that the agent recommended. The confidence score, which here you can see is great. It's 100%, meaning the agent is 100% sure in the answer and the recommendation for remediation that it did. It explains a bit, and then if you want to go ahead, you can also click resolve. This is our AI code fix. So this will open an actual PR with the changes, which of course we recommend to review. But this does most of the work for you, basically creating this pull request and not only telling you what the issue is, but also helping you fix it. Now that we understand where it came from and that you can also do it on a single violation, let's see it in scale. So in the automations page, which just a reminder, you can always go to straight from the automations tab and then create workflow. I can now see the workflow wizard. Now let's do one of the workflows that I think would be helpful for most security teams. We'll walk through it and I'll explain it as we go. So we can choose the name and description later on. For now, we'll just leave it blank. Select a trigger. For now, the only supported trigger is violation. This will hopefully expand in the future. And I can choose category. Now, here I want to be very specific because different things are supported for different types of violations. And that's just the way it makes sense. Each violation type is its own world, its own outcomes. So we want to make sure that the answer branches that you'll see soon fit the violation type. You can always hop over to the documentation and see exactly what's supported for what. But if I go down here, you'll see that the exploitability agent is supported throughout SAST, IAC, and SCA. And remediation is SAST, IAC, and container security. You can also see the answer branches, which you'll see shortly, and what they mean. So always feel free to hop over to the documentation or ask Maestro, and it'll provide the answer. So now I'll select SAST as the category, just because that's something that I'm interested in. I'll check all the policies, so everything SAST related, all SAST related violations. I can choose filters, so which type of violations, what are their attributes that I'm interested in. One that I usually do is risk score. I think it's a really good way to differentiate between riskier violations rather than ones that are safer. So I'll do risk score greater than 70. I can also choose labels and other conditions that are interesting to me, maybe a specific repo, maybe a specific project, depending on how scoped I want this workflow to be, which we do recommend for each workflow to be as scoped as possible, just so you can be as specific as possible with the outcomes. So now that I've set the violation category and the condition, I can go ahead and go over to the agents. Here we can see the remediation agent, which we've just talked about, as well as the exploitability agent, and the OpenFix PR, which is basically another AI-driven action that opens a fix PR, what we just saw in the violations page. Usually the first step that I do is I choose the exploitability agent. The first thing I want to do is, even though the risk score is over 70, the violation may not be exploitable, and in that case, I'd want to treat it differently. If it's not exploitable, I think what usually I would do is set its status to either ignored or resolved. It may not be interesting to me, But if I want to be more careful, I can also add a custom label saying it's not exploitable, and later on in the violations page or using another workflow, keep triaging it based on its label. I can also set the severity and make it lower now that we see that even though the risk score is high, it's not exploitable. The restart SLA will be available and relevant for some cases, but I think in this case, it's not as interesting. So for now, what I'll do is I'll set severity. I'll set it into low. Again, you can be as harsh or as much as you want. And I can also decide if I want to require human approval. We'll soon go into the human approval page, but for now, what you need to know is that what it does is once it reaches this step, meaning it's done everything beforehand, it'll stop and it won't set the severity, it won't perform the action until a human comes in and actually decides to approve or disregard it. For now, I think it's safe. I don't want to require human approval. I want it to keep running. For the limited option, which limited means that it's exploitable, but the attack surface is limited. Again, one of those things that you can totally ask Maestro or see in the documentation. I want to set a custom label saying that it's limited. So basically, for me, what it means is I don't want to change the severity because it is exploitable. It's just that the impact is limited. But I also don't want to do anything else that's too loud. I just want to tag it and have it visible later on when I go into it. Unknown, I want to do nothing. I think that if it's unknown, there's nothing in particular I'd want to do. It can just finish the workflow here and not keep going. And for exploitable, this is the most interesting answer branch. I want to go ahead and run the next agent, which is remediation. About chaining agents. You can chain up to 4 agents. Right now, I think that's like reasonable because we do have those 2 agents. You can also call in the same agent multiple times. So you can, and I recommend you to chain exploitability and remediation. You can also use remediation later on, which we'll talk about in a sec. And that should give you the full capacity of this feature. So now that we have a violation that's over 70 risk score, it's exploitable, we want to check its remediation. If remediation is available, I'd want to open a fixed PR. So if I know that all of these things are true and I have a remediation, go ahead and just open the PR for me. Because this is an action that's more quote unquote loud, I think I do want to require human approval for this step, and I want to manually go in and approve it. Again, this still saves us a lot of time because all of this triaging and checking are things that I didn't have to do. The workflow did for me. And basically, when I get into the human approval page, all I have to do is see all the information already summarized for me and just be the decision maker of whether I want the next step to go ahead or if I want to do something different. If the remediation is not available, I can choose another custom label. I can choose to set status again. Maybe I want to open a JIRA ticket and have someone take a look at these violations because they're exploitable, but the remediation is not available, meaning they are important. But for some reason, our agent was unable to find the remediation, or it's just not available in general. There's no public fix, for example. And then I want someone to go ahead and take a closer look at it. So I can open a JIRA ticket, I can choose the project, and I can also use our dynamic assignees if I want to have it even more scalable, making it so, say, the code owner is the one getting these JIRA tickets with these violations. Let me just fill out whatever else is needed. So we are good to go. Yep, that's good. Say by accident, I decide after remediation is not available, I click again on the remediation agent or exploitability agent. It doesn't make a lot of sense because we've already triggered and we know the answer by now, but it can happen. What we do in this case to save your tokens is we keep the context of what the remediation agent has found and the exploitability agent until the end. So if you trigger this remediation agent again, we won't take more of your tokens. You'll just go through it all of the answers here have already been answered here. So basically, we'll keep going, but we won't have to rerun those checks. So that's something that's good to know. I have seen a few customers where this has happened. So just so you know that we are being smart with your token usage and with the runs. Now I have this full workflow. I can title it whatever we want. For now, I'll just title it webinar, give it a description, hopefully as informative as possible. And then I can go ahead and test filter matches, see how many violations we have that match this filters, or I can just go ahead and publish. I'll go ahead and publish. I'll see this banner. Again, we are being as mindful as possible with your AI tokens. So we want to make sure that wherever AI tokens are being used, you can see it. And then I'll go ahead and publish it. I'll see really quick that it's being published. And now you can see it over here. If I go over now to the required approval page, this is where we'll see all the human approval workflows. So right now we don't have any workflows that are pending approval. Let me switch really quickly to a different environment just so you can see what that looks like. And Devin, while I do that, if you have any open questions or anything that you'd like to mention as well.
Sure. No, I think it's a really great to see the flow, and I think you've mentioned a few times the kind of being cognizant of token cost and spend and how you can scope workflows to, you filter by risk score, but you can also filter to a specific application or repository. One thing we haven't touched on yet is kind of the confidence thresholds. So the ability to set like when is an agent deemed to have made a decision or triggered an outcome with a threshold that we deem like, all right, that's at a confidence threshold that we're comfortable with it triggering the next step.
Yeah.
Also covered the kind of preventing the looping or caching previous um, agent outputs. So again, just ways I feel like there are multiple tiers of how to be efficient with token usage. Some of it's on Psycho's end of caching things and making sure we're not having looping requests to agents. Some of it's also on how these workflows are set up with filters. But yeah, I think
Yeah, totally agreed. As for the confidence threshold, you're right. So once you click on anything that's agentic, so the remediation agent or the exploitability agent, you'll see in the agent card over here, you can choose an agent if you want to switch out. And you can also see this confidence threshold, which we touched about. Basically, our default threshold is 70%, meaning if the agent's outcome is something that the agent is 70% confident in, so the remediation is 70%, the agent is 70% that confident the remediation is available, then that's when we'll mark it as remediation available and go into this answer branch and do all those actions afterwards. But this is something that can totally be manipulated and changed. You can go from 1 to 100. So if you want to be more strict, you can change it to 90. But if you want to, you can also lower it. So more things appear as remediation available, even if the confidence threshold is lower than 70. So those two can definitely be changed. And then I'll go back into the require approval page. I'm now in a different tenant, so you'll see some data. Um, we can see we have three tabs: spending review, which is where we approve or deny the next step. I'll show you in a sec. Approved, which is basically audit logs for things that have already been approved and what the next step's been. And denied, meaning what the next step should have been, but it was denied, so that didn't happen. If I go into any of these little tabs, I can go ahead and click them, and then I can see how many runs of this workflow happened, the trigger type, everything that you'd normally see on the workflow, as well as the logs. If I go ahead and edit it, I can see the workflow template, and then I can see what exactly required human approval, get more context of what the workflow actually looks like, and then I can decide whether the agent recommendation is something that I want to approve. So in this case, say I do, I approve it, and then it goes ahead and moves to the approved, and I can see that the request is approved. Um, everything that you see in automation, just a quick reminder, you can always go back to the table view, totally up to what's best for you. And also going back into the AI usage, I just wanted to let you know that we have this workflow by default where we sent alert about low AI token quota. So this is a default workflow by Cycode. It automatically appears with every tenant creation. It can be changed and configured differently, and it can also be disabled if you're uninterested in getting this information. But basically, what it does is every time that token consumption is at 80%, monthly, it'll show you that your AI quota is low and you may need to stock up and reach out to your customer success manager. Automatically, it sends the email to all owners and admins within your tenant. So they'll just get a normal email if they are part of the owners or admins group within Cycode. Um, so that's also a little something that we do to help you stay conscious. Before running each agentic or AI consuming workflow, we also check against your AI quota. So if we see that it's something that we're not going to be able to perform because your AI quota is too low, what we do is we don't run it and we'll flag it to you. You'll see visually on the workflow itself that the AI quota is low, so we won't be able to perform this action. Same goes for if it happens while we run the workflow. So if for some violations we did have enough AI quota, but then we see that we don't have enough, we won't waste your quota. We just will stop, we'll alert you, so we don't have any unfinished answers or information from AI runs that we did. So yes, the last thing I wanted to show is just the workflow library. In the workflow library, you can always find templates that we add. You can click them and publish them. We try to keep them as up to date as possible. And you can also see now that we have the exploitability to remediation with AI agent. So this is a workflow that's been curated by our product team and our R&D. And it should tackle a lot of really interesting and important use cases. So I do encourage you guys to go over to the workflow library and just look for AI agents. You'll see it right ahead, and go through the flow. It can give you your own ideas. You can change it or you can just publish it as is. So yeah, I think that's everything that I have. Any other questions, Devin, or things that you'd like to
No,
add?
no, this is great, and I think that AI template that you just showed is a great place to get started. Just kind of thinking from when you started the demo and kind of showing the exploitability and remediation agents in a kind of single violation card to a template workflow that's running it, running exploitability analysis on everything that meets a condition, then going ahead and if it is exploitable, running remediation. Like the kind of flip in that mode from like human driven to I'm the one invoking the agents to I'm kind of managing and configuring and orchestrating when these agents are run, but they're kind of running on their own at that kind of high capacity. And I think, workflows is a big way of how we do that. I know that there are some other kind of cool and interesting things that we've done around kind of bulk exploitability analysis, bulk remediation. So like really interesting use case from a customer. They ask, I run remediation campaigns. I want to, target a specific CVE or a specific CWE. You can filter down. You can put those in a campaign. You can run exploitability analysis on all of those. You can then filter by exploitability and remediation on all the exploitable ones. So yeah, I think it's really cool to see how kind of the agents and agentic capabilities are kind of breaking free of kind of the requirement of a human to kind of click and invoke. But I'm curious, as you're rolling this out and sharing it with customers, are you kind of seeing any interesting use cases or some like surprising things? Are there ideas that are percolating as customers start to use this?
Yeah, I think a lot of the use cases now are the remediation to exploitability, sorry, exploitability to
Yeah.
remediation. And then from then on out, it's so different for each customer. And also the scoping, I can see that not everyone who creates those workflows are Psycode admins. Sometimes they're project managers, or they can be a whole different roles depending on what they're part of. So saying project managers create this workflow and then it's scoped to their project. And it's because it's
Mm.
scoped to their project. They work a certain way. They redirect to Jira, to very specific like projects and stuff. So saying that correlation from the get-go, the scope, and then being able to make the actions very specific and basically like perfect to their need, so they
Mm.
don't have to do anything post workflow run, I think is really cool and interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Very interesting. Cool. Well, yeah, anything else to share and meet before we wrap up?
No, I think that's it.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Really, really fascinating, great, great product. So thanks for showing it off. I think, we've seen this is really how security kind of becomes as agentic as development and how we're kind of making that possible and kind of shifting from that, that really what is human driven and agent assisted to now it's becoming kind of agent driven but human controlled and human controlled through those confidence thresholds, through what requires human approval, through that kind of audit log of those approvals. So really changing how security teams work at a time when they really do need to change how they work to reflect the changes in how development happens, how the threat landscape is evolving. So yeah, thank you very much. And for anyone in the audience, if you want to learn more, again, the best way I would say is to try it yourself. So if you are a current Psycho customer, reach out to your customer success manager, start experimenting, open that workflow template that Amit shared, and start using it for yourself and see how it works. And if you're not a SciCode customer yet, please reach out, book a demo. We're happy to show you more, explore how this works in your environment. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You.